Hi there, my name's Lucas, and for my critical assignment, I will be talking about the human brain. And to describe the anatomy of the brain, I'm going to be using the skeleton just to point to where certain lobes and hemispheres and structures of the brain are. So we'll start with the anatomy. So while the human brain is extremely complex, as we know, it can be broken down into three main components, which is the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Now, the cerebrum is the largest part of the brain and sits right in the middle. It's what we usually notice what a brain looks like. And that's divided into left and right hemispheres right down the middle. So left hemisphere, right hemisphere. And it consists of multiple lobes which serve different neurological functions. The cerebellum sits posteriorly and inferiorly to the cerebrum. So cerebrum's right here, cerebellum is right underneath the back part of it. And the brainstem, which serves as a connection point for the cerebrum and cerebellum to the spinal cord, sits around the same area. So those are all connected, and they connect to the spinal cord. So, as I said before, the brain is broken up into multiple lobes on each hemisphere, and these lobes are the frontal lobe, sits right in the front, the parietal lobe, which is about right here, the occipital lobe, which is right in the back, and the temporal lobe, which is right here where the temple is. So the outer layer of the cerebrum is what we call the cerebral cortex, and that consists of a look of folds and valleys, kind of like a coiled snake. It's pretty recognizable, and those folds and valleys are referred to as the gyrus and the sulcus. Also within the cerebral cortex is what we call white and gray matter, which hosts millions of nerve cell bodies. And also hidden within the cortex are multiple glands and structures with their own specific functions. So ones we may think of are the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, pineal gland, and many more. As for the physiology of the brain, starting with the cerebrum, it's responsible for important functions such as vision, hearing, speech, touch, emotions, and fine motor skills. The cerebellum coordinates gross motor movements and aids with balance and posture. And the brainstem and the medulla are responsible for maintaining automatic body functions such as breathing and heart rate, digestion, regurgitation, important things that keep us functioning. As I said earlier, each lobe of the brain is responsible for a certain neurological function. So, for example, the frontal lobe is responsible for emotions, behavior, judgment, speech, writing, etc. The parietal lobe is responsible for touch and pain, body temperature, spatial perception, and a few more other things. The occipital lobe is responsible for vision, light, color, movement. The temporal lobe is responsible for our memory, our hearing, organization, etc. So a common neurological disorder is something called Parkinson's disease, which is common amongst elderly individuals, in which damage occurs to the dopaminergic cells within the brain. The loss of these cells can affect motor function, along with a number of other symptoms. The most common visual symptom being tremoring. Recent studies have shown that cannabis, marijuana, a natural plant consisting of cannabinoids, which is THC and CBD, has the capabilities to restore dopaminergic cells that in turn help restore that lost motor function and reduce those common symptoms such as tremoring. So I find this medical intervention to be particularly interesting because it is entirely natural, comes from a plant, and as seen in Genesis 2:15, humans were created to cultivate and keep the Garden of Eden, and ultimately God's kingdom. And just as God gave us these body systems and structures needed to cultivate his kingdom, such as the brain and our motor function and everything we need to take care of this earth, he also created flora and fauna to cultivate those said systems and structures. So, for instance, beetroot enhances aspects of kidney function, and cannabis does the same thing for brain function. So, something that's natural, created by God, put on this earth for us to cultivate, can also cultivate us.